Hello, and welcome to Secure Talk, a podcast where we explore the critical world of information security innovation and compliance. I'm your host, Justin Beals, founder and CEO of StrikeGraph. Together with our expert guests, we'll provide you tools and tips to help your business thrive in the rapidly evolving cybersecurity environment. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special year-end edition of Secure Talk. I'm your host, Justin Beals. Let me ask you something. How many security meetings did you sit through this year where someone presented a dashboard full of red, yellow, and green indicators, talked about risk posture and threat landscape, and everyone nodded knowingly, but nothing fundamentally changed? Now let me ask you something else. How many of those meetings addressed the fact that 91% of CISOs report moderate to high stress levels, that 65% of Secure Operations Center professionals are thinking about quitting, that your organization is drowning in 10,000 alerts per day, most of which are false positives? This year on Secure Talk, we spoke with security leaders from Walmart, Amazon Web Services, major banks, and fast-growing startups. We talked to people building mobile device management platforms, threat intelligence systems, and compliance automation tools. And across all these conversations, a pattern emerged that should fundamentally change your security strategy for 2026. The pattern is this. The organizations winning at security aren't buying more tools or hiring more analysts. They're thinking security as a business function, not a technical problem. They're treating security like the oil and gas industry treats safety, as something woven into culture, operations, and value creation. They're moving from compliance theater to competitive advantage, from cost center to revenue enabler, from reactive firefighting to adaptive, business-aligned strategy. Today, I'm going to share 5 strategic imperatives from this year's conversations, 5 shifts that will separate the security leaders who thrive in 2026 from those who burn out trying to play defense with yesterday's playbook. Let's get started. Our first strategic imperative comes from a challenge most enterprises are just beginning to confront. You're about to experience an identity explosion that will break your existing access management systems. And if you don't prepare now, AI deployment will grind to a halt or create catastrophic security gaps. Rishi Bhargava has been tracking this problem for years, and here's what he told us.
Think about what suddenly happened, right? There were humans getting access to an application. They would log in. That was where we started our journey. In last 2 years, suddenly, you're giving an AI agent access to a whole bunch of applications. You're giving an AI agent access to your cloud, Google Calendar, to your email, to your sales application. And you want to give access with the consent of a human. The human may have different level of accesses in all of these tools. So you need to give access to the agent on behalf of the user, which is a subset of the user permissions. And you want to give monitoring and ability to revoke, give time-bound access. So because agents are probabilistic, not deterministic. So this just opens up a whole new set of controls and parameters that you want.
Think about what's happening in your organization right now. You probably have employees using ChatGPT for research. Maybe you've deployed Copilot for coding. Perhaps you're experimenting with AI agents for customer service or data analysis. Each of these represents an identity problem. When an AI agent accesses your CRM on behalf of a sales rep, what permissions does it have? When it queries your data warehouse, how do you audit that access? When it makes a decision that affects compliance, who's accountable? Rishi explains the scale of this challenge.
So I think there's 2 personas. One is, I think, either the developers. So exactly how you said, open source approach, community approach. I mean, not that much open source, right? It's our approach is like, we need to enable developers like good documentation, being able to do things on their own, build things on their own. They want SDKs in all their languages that they support. So a lot of our focus is meet the developer where they are. They want to code in one language, there's an SDK for that. They want to do it another way, here's an SDK for that. Very rich documentation, very transparent development life cycle. So that's one aspect. But the second is security. I mean, a lot of the larger organizations that we work with, security teams are heavily engaged, and security teams drive the requirements. And then they give it to the developer. So it almost starts by the security team saying, this is what we want, give it to the developer, and the developer needs to be helped. So I think we kind of approach the market both from a developer side and the security side, but developer side more.
Walmart, with over 10,000 developers, faced this at scale. Tobias Jurgen led AI transformation there, and his warning is stark.
I think that there is so much that is open for increased security risk. These are not deterministic models, as you know, they are probabilistic models. They are very ripe to things like prompt injection. You have to approach things, I think, and at least from my perspective, you have to approach things from a systems perspective. You have to approach things, in all likelihood, from an automated perspective, because you're going to be attacked by automated AI systems, and humans probably are not going to be able to get to that. You have to think about your heuristics, and you have to think about your first principles, because if you have a static set of rules that you think are going to solve all of your security problems, you're already dead in the water.
And here's where it gets truly challenging. When AI agents venture beyond your firewall.
If these agents are behind your firewall and they are in a closed environment, that's one thing. But if you actually are using these agents to go out and fetch information or to do tasks in the digital environment that we know as the internet, that's a messy place. It's a dangerous place. There are a lot of very bad agents out there already. And if your agents don't have the proper security measures and the proper security policies, it's very easily for them to get infected and take that information or those procedures back into your organization and do very bad things very quickly. Because you have to remember, at some point soon, we're not going to be talking about, I got 5 bots. I've got 6 agents. No, it's going to be tens of thousands, if not millions.
So here's strategic imperative 1 for 2026. Architect your identity infrastructure for the AI age before you scale deployment. This means, first, inventory every AI system touching your data, not just the official ones, the shadow AI that employees are already using. Second, establish clear protocols for AI agent authentication, authorization, and audit trails. Rishi's insight is invaluable here.
We call it the Agentic Identity Hub. Now, it's very, very interesting. Think about what suddenly happened, right? There were humans getting access to an application. They would log in. That was where we started our journey. In last 2 years, suddenly, you're giving an AI agent access to a whole bunch of applications. You're giving an AI agent access to your cloud, Google Calendar, to your email, to your sales application. And you want to give access with the consent of a human. The human may have different level of accesses in all of these tools. So you need to give access to the agent on behalf of the user, which is a subset of the user permissions. And you want to give monitoring and ability to revoke, give time-bound access. So because agents are probabilistic, not deterministic. So this just opens up a whole new set of controls and parameters that you want. And this world becomes complicated, but you don't want to expose that complication to the developer, to the customer, and to the agent. So literally now we internally as a group, we deal with three things. We say CX, which is the customer experience. We say DevX or DX, which is the developer experience. And then we say AX, which is the agent experience. Because as we are evolving, the agent is not going to ask for permissions 20 times. You don't want it to. So how do you manage that?
Third, create governance frameworks that answer who's responsible when an AI makes a decision. How do we validate AI actions? What data can AI access? Under what conditions? Tobias Jurgen explained what this looks like in practice.
How do you measure the trust, and who is measuring the trust? And when you don't have the trust, what remediation or mitigation measures will you take?
Right.
And then after that, do you go back around and kind of have a closed loop process to say, now that we've taken these actions, what has actually happened? Because again, like, you see it, just like it's moving so fast. Those kind of closed loop systems, those very thorough processes, everyone's just like more sooner. You need existing systems with very good and very clean data that are resilient, that are robust. Where do those systems live? And brother, you and I have been around a while, so we know where they are. They're in systems of record. They're in systems of engagement. They're in supply chain management. Yeah. There are reams and decades of information there in a lot of these large enterprises. But what that gives us is a foundation for all of the data that we can then do differentials off of to say, if we deploy these 3 agents doing these 15 tasks within this specific workflow, now we can actually say, hey, what is the differential off of the existing baseline so that we can have, the measures that we're looking for.
Satyam Patel, CISO at Kanji, put it perfectly.
We're creating harmony between IT and security together, making executives better decisions on providing security as well. So it's a very, very different landscape.
The companies that solve identity for AI in 2026 will have a massive competitive advantage. They'll deploy AI faster with more confidence, while competitors are stuck in endless security reviews or suffering breaches from poorly governed AI access. This isn't just about security. It's about business velocity. Our second strategic imperative comes from a transformation happening right now in the defense industrial base, one that will cascade through every supply chain in every sector. On November 10th, 2025, CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, became mandatory in all Department of Defense contract solicitations, and the enforcement is already here. Now, Bob Kolaski spent 15 years in senior federal government roles, including founding CISA's National Risk Management Center. Now he helps defense contractors navigate these requirements at Exeger. And here's what he told us.
I like to think of it, first of all, it's the permission to put the requirements into the contracts, which is what's always been coming, and sort of to define the levels of expectations for CMMC certification based on the handling of CUI class controlled unclassified information there. And so it starts the framework by which there are going to be real requirements, and you are going to be required to be certified at a level 1, a level 2, or a level 3 based on the DoD's expectation of what CUI is going to be handled as part of that. And so, I think that's the significant point, that when you are responding, when you're a part of a team responding, when you are serving part of the defense industrial base in responding to these things, you know where the requirements are. And so, we've talked before about sort of people like are going to get religion finally, but you better have your religion now, right? And so right. This is the moment you're talking to God.
Let me give you the business case for why this matters, even if you're not a defense contractor. Third-party breaches have become the dominant attack vector in recent years. Bob explained why this shift happened.
Why do cyber trends change? Cyber trends change because adversaries see opportunities to do harm, right? And so third-party breaches became a mechanism that is so popular now that as first-party systems became a little, people invest more in their own information security controls and things like that. To hit a target became perhaps easier through a third party than a first party because there were so many third parties there. And in general, supply chains and use of third parties has increased in general, which just has increased attack surfaces, and adversaries go where attack surfaces are there. And then the other aspect of kind of what we've seen in third party attacks is it can be a little less, you do one thing and it has broad impact.
In May 2025, Raytheon paid $8.4 million to settle False Claims Act allegations for failing to comply with cybersecurity requirements. The issue wasn't sophisticated hackers. They failed to implement basic security controls. Pennsylvania State University paid $1.25 million. Georgia Tech paid $875,000. Katie Arrington, performing duties of the DoD Chief Information Officer and architect of CMMC, warned contractors, if you go on LinkedIn one more time and tell me how hard CMMC is, I'm going to beat you. That ship sailed in 2014. And she's right. Contractors have been required to comply with NIST 800-171 since 2017. They've been self-certifying for almost a decade, but now the grace period is over. And here's what makes CMMC different from previous compliance efforts. It's quantitative. You're not checking boxes, you're receiving scores. 88 out of 110 points are required for level 2 conditional status. These represent measurable capabilities across incident response, access control, and continuous monitoring. For level 1 contractors handling federal contract information, annual self-assessments reported through the Supplier Performance Risk System are required. For level 2 contractors handling controlled unclassified information, independent validation by certified third-party assessors, C3PAOs, may be required, and it's likely it is for most contractors. And finally, for level 3 contractors that are working with breakthrough technology, they'll receive a direct government audit. The Department of Defense estimates that 35% of their contractors will need level 2 certification. That's thousands of organizations competing for limited assessment capacity. The bottleneck is real with the C3PAOs. But here's where it gets interesting for non-defense business. Prime contractors now bear the responsibility for verifying subcontractor compliance before award. They're personally attesting to the government that they're actively managing their supply chain. The concept of an affirming official puts accountability on a senior executive. It fundamentally changes the nature of the business relationship between primes and subs. Think a little bit about what this means. If you're a subcontractor, CMMC certification becomes a business differentiator. You lead with it when establishing relationships with prime contractors. You'll get those questions before it even becomes a contracting discussion. And if you're a prime, you now own your supplier's risk. Sign your name to a CMMC attestation, and you're taking legal responsibility for the accuracy of that claim. Bob explained how this is already changing the market.
I think it'll change the nature of the business relationship between a prime and a sub. Obviously, subs will want to be figuring out ways to demonstrate when they're going after being a subcontract for prime contract, to demonstrate ahead of the game that they're already there. So it is a business differentiator to say, hey, we've achieved this level of CMMC certification for another purpose, or we've made this investment in these sort of things, or these are our certifications around that. And you're going to want to lead with that when you're setting up the relationship with the prime contractors, and you're going to get those questions even before it becomes a contracting discussion, right? And, at the same time, the primes and, the trend of the primes actually making investments in subcontracts' ability to go through the CMMC process and demonstrate CMMC compliance if they think a sub adds real value to their offering, and that's what we're certainly I think DoD is certainly hoping that there's just going to be more pressure, business pressure across the way to make investments in this area as a competitive advantage.
Now, why should non-defense companies care about this? Because this model is spreading. We've seen these compliance outcomes before, and they tend to be a little like a virus. Think about FedRAMP certification for cloud services. Think about automotive supply chain security standards with TSACs. Think about critical infrastructure requirements, NERC and FERC. The pattern is the same. Regulators are moving from self-attestation to quantitative, validated security practices with real enforcement. And here's the kicker. Bob pointed this out.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see a theme. We're talking about CMMC, but we could be talking about FedRAMP certification. We could be talking about other aspects of the DoD's software risk management process. You see a thing where nobody wants it just a moment of time, either a binary yes or no, but a commitment to continue to actively manage risk and be flexible around that. And so, the easy mantra is to get rid of checklists and replace checklists with sort of a dynamic process that can be automated and regularly checked against that. And I think the policy and regulatory framework is trying to replicate that, make that mantra a reality.
Yeah. So here's the strategic imperative 2 for 2026. Treat supply chain security as a competitive advantage before it becomes a regulatory requirement. This means, first, if you're in regulated industries or government contracting, get ahead of CMMC now. The organizations that invested in 2024 and early 2025 are winning contracts in late 2025. The ones who waited are facing 6-month backlogs for C3PAOs. Second, even if you're not in defense, implement the same principles. Quantitative security standards, continuous monitoring, third-party validation. These are not going away. They're the future of how enterprises will evaluate suppliers. Third, make your security posture visible to customers. Don't wait for RFPs to ask about your security practices. Lead with them. Make security a reason customers choose you over competitors. The ROI here is direct and measurable. Bob works with 3 of the 5 biggest prime contractors in the defense industrial base.
It's that righteous cycle of being trusted both by the Defense Department and the defense industrial base companies that's helped make us successful. And it's facilitated a conversation because they both have similar views of where there's risk in their supply chain because they're using our tools, and hopefully it helps increase trust.
That's the future. Government and industry working from shared threat intelligence and shared standards. Security stops being adversarial and becomes collaborative. The organizations that embrace this shift in 2026 won't just meet compliance requirements. They'll build trust with customers, reduce their actual risk, and create competitive moats that keep out less secure competitors. Our third strategic imperative challenges a common assumption that the most valuable threat intelligence comes from expensive vendor feeds and external sources. What if your most actionable intelligence is already sitting in your logs right now? Eldon Sprickeroff founded eSentire and has been in the security industry for decades. While we didn't capture a specific quote from him about this exact topic, his philosophy permeates the industry. Context matters more than technology. Sam Chehab, who's held CISO roles at multiple organizations, including Postman, explained the practical reality of where we are with AI and threat intelligence.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a promotion path between AI collects the information, analyzes the information, provides recommended action, human takes action, and then at some point there'll be we will elevate beyond I've always take the same 3 actions when this problem comes up. Here's the decision criteria. Now let's flip the switch and hopefully we don't turn on Skynet and it take over the world.
Sam's point about AI progression is crucial, and his concerns about supply chain security reflect what keeps most security leaders up at night.
Well, from a threat landscape standpoint, I think security still has the hygiene problem across the board. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't say, I wake up every morning and worry about our supply chain risks. Log4j wasn't that long ago.
This is where specialized AI models excel. Not trying to be general purpose security oracles, but doing specific tasks extremely well. Chris Weissopal from Veracode has been studying this. His team completed one of the most comprehensive studies of AI-generated code security ever conducted.
One thing that we did do is we built a product called Veracode Fix, which uses an LLM to fix code. And it turns out that LLMs are really good at fixing code if you point out where the problem is and you tell them what the problem is. Because then it doesn't have to think about finding it or classifying it. It just says, you say, there's a cross-site scripting error on this line of code. Make this secure, make it safe. And that's a huge productivity tool for developers, because developers have problems fixing code even when it's pointed out to them with the vulnerabilities, they don't know how to fix it. So training LLMs to fix code seems to be easier than training them to find vulnerabilities.
Chris explains why this works.
Fixing code is really localized. There's not a huge context window. It's probably just like maybe 10,000 tokens or something, which all LLMs can handle that. So it's because it's usually just in a class and a method. It's not that complicated. But finding a vulnerability could span, hundreds of thousands of lines of code. So now we're potentially talking about millions of tokens.
So here's the pattern. The winning strategy isn't buying every threat intelligence feed on the market. It's building systems that extract intelligence from your own data and use focused AI to make that intelligence actionable. Think about what this means. You're probably paying for multiple threat intelligence feeds, indicators of compromise from vendor A, threat reports from vendor B, vulnerability databases from vendor C, and most of that intelligence is generic. It applies to everyone, which means it's optimized for no one. Meanwhile, your own logs contain intelligence that's perfectly tuned to your environment. They show actual attack patterns against your systems. They reveal your specific vulnerabilities. They demonstrate how threats move through your infrastructure. Strategic Imperative 3 for 2026. Build threat intelligence capabilities that turn your logs into a competitive advantage. This means, first, audit what intelligence you're already collecting but not using. Your SIEM has data. Your firewall has data. Your endpoint protection has data. You're paying to collect all of this. Are you actually extracting value from it? Second, implement focused AI models for specific security tasks, not magical AI security platforms that claim to solve everything, but targeted models that do log analysis, anomaly detection, or code review extremely well. Chris, here's what models outperform general purpose AI.
This is one of the things we did with our Veracode Fix product, is we used, a trusted data set of known secure code, because, as a company that tests code, we have a lot of code samples. Yeah. And so we have a lot of known bad code, known good code, all reviewed by humans after being reviewed by the machine, and then using those to train what's bad, what's good, in order so we could say, we know this is bad, turn it into what's good. And it knew it learned what the different bad patterns were. And this was for just, specific languages we support, specific vulnerability classes that we find. We want to be able to fix those things, and then use human supervision on top of that to make sure it worked. Now, this is a small sample set, right? This is 10 or 15 different vulnerability classes over 15 different languages. You can do the matrix. It's a tractable problem, right? That humans can review.
Third, measure success by prevented incidents, not by number of alerts processed. One organization we spoke to prevented $3 million in fraud using intelligence from their own logs. That's ROI that shows up on the P&L. The companies that master this in 2026 will spend less on security vendors while achieving better outcomes. They'll detect threats faster because their intelligence is tuned to their environment, and they'll make better decisions because their data actually reflects their reality. Our fourth strategic imperative represents a fundamental shift in how we think about security economics. What if security wasn't just a cost center? What if it was your primary competitive differentiator? Dr. Bill Anderson has built companies where security is the product. At Mattermost, at CIS Secure, and at Oculus Labs. In every case, the business grew specifically because security was woven into the DNA from day one.
Mattermost was founded in 2015. It was an open source sort of alternative to messaging, proprietary messaging tools. One thing that has persisted from the earliest days until today is that we always give our customers control over their data. And we really, really focus on communications privacy. Our customers are governments, a critical infrastructure, large organizations, enterprises, the sort of folks who really, really care about reliability, security. In some cases, for example, Air Mobility Command, the Air Force Air Mobility Command runs their daily flight operations off of Mattermost. So security, reliability, sovereignty of the data is incredibly important.
Now you might be thinking, that's fine for defense contractors, but my business isn't selling security. But consider how security creates differentiation, even when it's not your primary product. Here's Bill on why this is an important differentiator.
In the intelligence business, your questions reveal an awful lot about your knowledge and your intentions. So those kinds of customers do not want to send, and let's just say I wouldn't recommend they send their customers off to their questions off to ChatGPT, because someone can be listening. It actually horrifies me when I hear, we do our this part of our workflow by asking ChatGPT for help. And I'm thinking, other people can listen to that, right? And they'll know what you're doing. So putting those models inside makes a lot more sense for any sort of sensitive, or frankly, if you're in a financial or healthcare or insurance or, oil and gas exploration or manufacturing, anything that you've got that's proprietary, think twice about your information flows.
Satyam Patel at Kanji is both a CIO and CISO, and he sees how major companies are making security central to their value proposition.
Absolutely. I know Apple had a big stance on privacy for years and years at a time, but I think Apple is, and I think along with Kanji's support and other vendors out there, Apple has kind of opened the doors of protecting, right? It almost like it's a balance between data privacy versus data security, and I find there's a little bit, data security is a little bit edge over data privacy because the consequences of you losing your potential social security number or PII information and consequences a lot more higher. So I feel like people are so focused on privacy, it is a little bit softer compared to security. Because if I lose my identity, if I lose my social security number, it takes months and years to kind of get back to par again. Yeah. So I think Apple understood that and realizes that. So now they're actually really emphasizing on security quite a bit.
So here's strategic imperative 4 for 2026. Position security as a competitive advantage and a revenue enabler, not just a cost of doing business. To make this happen, first, quantify the business value of your security investments. Don't just report on threats prevented. Show how security-enabled deals shortened sales cycle or opened new markets. When you can demonstrate that your SOC 2 Type 2 certification won you 3 enterprise customers worth $2 million in ARR, suddenly security spending looks very different to the CFO. Second, make security visible to customers in ways that build trust, not through compliance badges alone, but through transparency about your practices. Some companies are publishing security architecture documents. Others are offering customers direct access to audit reports. This transparency becomes a differentiator when competitors are opaque. And Bill helped explain what this looked like at scale.
We have literally thousands of contributors globally. The innovation, we continue to move like everyone else does. We have more automation. We have large language models. We have support for multiple large language models, so a customer can reach out to the popular ones that are cloud hosted, but also host internally their own models, which is very important from a security perspective.
Third, train your sales team to sell security. This doesn't mean making security people do sales calls. It means giving salespeople the language and confidence to position security as a reason to buy, not just a box to check. The companies that master this will change the economics of security. Instead of grudgingly approving security budgets, CFOs will see them as growth investments. Instead of security being the department of no, it becomes the team that enables new business opportunities. Security will shift from being the reason customers hesitate to being the reason that they choose you. Our fifth and final strategic imperative is the most important and the hardest to implement. You cannot buy your way to security. You can only build culture to take you there. This lesson came through in nearly every conversation. But Brian Wagner articulated it most clearly when he talked about redefining information security.
And what that kind of translates to is if you take the word safety, that can mean a lot of things. And if we're obviously in the context of information security, but what about information safety? What about cyber safety? I think that's kind of the crux of the redefinition. And what I mean by that is if you've ever been to any customer site or worked at a corporate site that is in the oil and gas industry. I don't know if you've ever been to like a BP or a Shell or anything like that. I did in my AWS days. And when you walk around these corporate offices, right? These are not like, it's not like oil fields. I'm not talking about oil fields, or I'm not talking about factory floors. You get, they're everywhere. There's all this stuff about hold the handrail. And wash your hand. Like it is everywhere. You cannot look in any direction and not be reminded of your physical environment and safety. And that came from a lot of regulations and just the industry at large internationally with this very, very high standard for your physical awareness. Because as you might imagine, people, especially in like factory situations, it's dangerous if you're not careful. But that's kind of what that's the challenge, right? I think in cybersecurity or information security is historically speaking, and thankfully things are changing, but historically speaking, it's like, oh, security, that's your problem. I'm not a security person. That's your job, because it felt like this dark art.
Think about the oil and gas industry example Brian just described. When you walk into their offices, not just the oil fields, even the corporate headquarters, safety is everywhere. On the walls, in the meeting protocols, and how people talk about work. Why? Because that industry learned through catastrophic experience that safety isn't the safety team's job. It's everyone's responsibility. A culture of safety saves lives and saves money. We need the same shift in cybersecurity, and some companies are doing it. Dmitry Schwartzman described how MongoDB built this kind of culture.
Don't let an incident go without its proper RCA. So that actually taught a lot of things and turned a lot of playbooks into what they are, which is way more mature.
Security review before there's even code. Now that's cultural. It means developers see security as a part of quality, not as a gate they have to get through. Now, building culture is hard. It requires consistency, a leadership commitment, and time. Brian explained what this means practically.
If we talk about information safety, if we talk about that democratization of security, let me share why you shouldn't be, using your personal Google Drive at work. Like if you, it's not because I'm mean and I'm smarter than you or I know more than you, but it's my job to know what risks that could pose to the business at large. And if I can explain that to you in a way that makes sense and also provide you with an easy to use alternative, or reason why to adhere to the company standard, you're going to be more inclined to do that, and also maybe pass that on to your new starter.
That investment is cultural. Satyam Patel described what it looks like when culture is already in place.
When I first came on board, that was a culture shock for me when I first came on board, because my previous organization has always been, I have to go find and I have to go do a road show, say, this is what we're doing security side. But in Kanji, people coming to me, say, hey, we're doing this. What does security think of this? So it's been a very, very different approach. And I'm very appreciative of that, to be honest. And, they're coming to us for a feedback.
So here's strategic imperative 5 for 2026. Invest in security culture more than security tools. First, measure cultural indicators, not just the technical ones. Do developers see security as a partner or an obstacle? Do employees report suspicious activity or ignore it? Does leadership talk about security in all-hands meetings or only after breaches? Second, reward security behaviors, not just security compliance. When someone catches a phishing email and reports it, celebrate that. When a team proactively addresses a vulnerability before it's exploited, recognize that. Also be careful of beating down teams that have executed a security issue instead of taking here's a moment for them to improve. This culture is built through repeated reinforcement of desired behaviors. And third, make security training relevant and ongoing, not just an annual checkbox. The best security training I've seen is embedded in workflows, just-in-time guidance when someone is about to do something risky, not a yearly video they click through without watching. Brian put it perfectly when he talked about evangelizing safety.
It is about evangelizing safety and promoting safety in just the little things, like use your password wallet, right? Use your password generator. Like if everyone could just do that, we're in great shape. Don't click on emails that you don't recognize, things like that. So that's kind of where it's redefining the discussion and how we think about it. It's just part of everyday life, or it should be part of everyday life, especially not only in our personal lives, but in our professional ones.
The companies that build genuine security cultures in 2025 will outperform those that just buy more tools. They'll have lower turnover because security teams won't burn out. They can rely on their team. They'll have fewer breaches because thousands of employees will act as sensors. And they'll move faster because security will be built in, not bolted on. Now let me bring this together. 5 strategic imperatives for 2026. Number 1, architect your identity infrastructure for the AI age. The identity explosion is coming, probably already here. Act now or get left behind. 2, treat supply chain security as a competitive advantage. CMMC shows the future. Quantitative, validated, continuously monitored security standard. Get ahead before they're mandatory in your industry. 3, build threat intelligence capabilities. Your logs contain better intelligence than most vendor feeds. You just need to extract it. 4, position security as a competitive advantage. Trust is a differentiator in 2026. Make security visible, valuable, and part of your sales motion. And 5, invest in security culture more than security tools. You cannot buy your way to security. You can only build a culture to take you there. But here's the meta pattern connecting all 5 imperatives. The organizations that win in 2026 will treat security as a business function, not a technical problem. They'll recognize that security enables velocity, creates trust, prevents losses, and opens markets. They'll measure security success in business terms: revenue enabled, customers won, incidents prevented, time to market reduced. And they'll move from asking how much does security cost to how much value does security create. Of course, the technical challenges are real. AI security, threat intelligence, identity management. These do require expertise and investment. But the strategic shift is more fundamental. It's about how you think about security's role in your organization? Are you the department of no that blocks progress? Are you the team that enables the business to move fast safely? Are you checking compliance boxes, or are you building operational excellence? Are you buying tools, or are you building culture? To the CISOs, security leaders, and executives listening, you have a choice in 2026. You can keep playing defense with yesterday's playbook, buying more tools, hiring more analysts, fighting fires. Or you can make the strategic shift. Treat security as a business function, build culture, create competitive advantage. The organizations that make this shift won't just be more secure. They'll be faster, more trusted, more valuable. They'll attract better customers, better employees, and better investors. Security will shift from being the reason customers hesitate to the reason they choose you. That's the future we can build in 2026, not through better technology alone, but through better strategy. I'm Justin Beals, and this has been Secure Talks End of Year Edition. Our value prop here is to build something secure, build something valuable, build something that matters. I'll see you in 2026.